Institutions treating structured addressing as a compliance checkbox capture less than 20% of the value. They pay the full implementation bill, same 10 to 16-week build, and most of them don't know the other 80% exists.
Welcome back to Resolved. I'm Jenny, and today I'm joined again by Parth Desai, founder and chairman of ioNova AI. If you've been following Parth's work, the Same Effort, Better Outcome piece in the newsletter, the companion blog that ran alongside it, you already know where this conversation is going. Parth has been arguing for the better part of a year that the ISO 20022 address debate has been stuck on the wrong question. Today, we're going one layer deeper, into the 10 dimensions where structured outperforms hybrid and what most banks are leaving on the table. Parth, let's start with that 20% number because it's the one that's going to stop people. You've said most banks implementing ISO 20022 addressing are capturing less than 20% of the value. That's a striking number. What's in the missing 80%?
Right. So let me break that down. Every institution I've advised this year is sizing its ISO 20022 built the same way. As an ISO compliance cost center, meet the November 2026 mandate, pass audit, move on. That framing is the trap. When you treat the build as an ISO compliance exercise, you end up with hybrid output, one marginal STP improvement, and an ISO compliance certificate that captures maybe 15 to 20% of the value the same build could have delivered. The other 80% lives in dimensions banks don't put on the business case: exception economics, screening precision, audit provenance, disambiguation quality, financial identifier preservation, correspondent relationship quality, AI readiness, and format conversion resilience. 8 dimensions where structured outperforms hybrid measurably. And here's the part that frustrates me most. The same 10 to 16-week sidecar build captures all of them. Identical pipeline, identical budget. The only thing that differs is the output configuration at stage 5. Structured populates street name, building number, town name, postal code, country. Hybrid collapses most of that into free text address line. One is a configuration toggle. The other is 80% of your return.
Okay, let's start where banks feel this first. In the P&L, operationally, what actually changes when you go structured instead of hybrid?
Okay, so that's a really good question. 3 dimensions, all measurable. First, straight-through processing. The industry cross-border STP baseline is 25 to 40%, not the 60 to 90% that AI models and some industry reports keep repeating. Hybrid nudges that by 5 to 15 percentage points because ambiguous address line fields still generate exceptions for sanctions, compliance, and intermediary banks. Structured targets 98% plus, because every component is discretely validated before the payment ever enters the correspondent chain. Second, exception economics. At $25 to $50 per exception and 60% exception rates under hybrid, a mid-size bank doing 5 million monthly cross-border transactions burns $15 to $25 million a year on address exceptions alone. Structured cuts, exception rates below 2%. That's $13 to $23 million saved annually. Same build cost, 30 to 50 times the return. Third, and this one banks consistently underestimate, format conversion resilience. Payments don't move through one format. They traverse MT to MX, CIPA to CBPR+, domestic to cross-border. At every hop, free text, address line content gets reparsed or truncated. Structured data survives those conversions intact because semantic meaning is encoded in the XML structure, not in positional text. Every intermediary reads the same discrete fields. No interpretation required.
That's the P&L side. Move us into compliance. What changes for the CCO and for the auditors?
Well, there's where they feel it. 3 more dimensions, all high stakes. First, Regulatory compliance level: EPC, SWIFT CBPR Plus, and CPMI BIS. All three designates structured as the target state and the regulatory objective. Hybrid is explicitly the allowed minimum fallback. It is not the destination. Choosing hybrid only locks you into a potentially second migration when EPC, E and I tightens in 2027 or 2028, two projects instead of one. Fifth, sanction screening precision. This is the Cuba Street problem. Unstructured and hybrid strings force screening engines into blunt string-level matching. Cuba Street, Wellington, New Zealand, flags for Cuban sanctions. Paris, Hilton, London triggers alerts for both a jurisdiction and a city. Industry false positive rates exceed 95%.
Which is almost comic. If it weren't a live regulatory problem, every compliance team in the world is paying for.
Exactly. Structured addresses enable field-level screening. The discrete tree element is New Zealand. The screening engine never looks at the street name for country matching. 25 to 30% fewer false positives. Thousands of compliance analyst hours recovered every year. Sixth, audit trail and provenance. This one gets overlooked until the regulator walks in. Hybrid output is an opaque free text blob. Auditors cannot reconstruct how a component was derived. Structured resolution delivers deterministic provenance. Every mapped component, every validation, every enrichment, backed by an auditable transformation record. When the regulator asks, "How did you determine the country for this payment?" Structured has a documented answer. Hybrid has a blob.
Now, the data quality side, the dimensions that only show up when something has gone wrong downstream.
Exactly. Two dimensions here, both quietly enormous. First, geographic disambiguation. There are 28 cities named Paris worldwide, 17 named London. Frankfurt exists in Germany and in Kentucky. Hybrid's limited address line fields don't have the granularity for multi-signal disambiguation. So the payment goes out with Paris in a text line and the correspondent bank guesses. When they guess wrong, you get an exception, a query, sometimes a routing error that costs hours to unwind. Structured fields let the resolution engine use postal format patterns, street naming conventions, currency codes, BIC prefixes, correspondent routing context to resolve the right city at origin before the payment moves, not at the point of failure downstream. Eighth, financial ID preservation. Legacy systems embed ABA, IFSC, sort code, NCH codes directly inside address fields. Everyone who has worked with real payment data has seen this. Hybrid parsing cannot reliably distinguish a financial identifier from street text. It either corrupts them or discards them silently. We've built validation for over 25 types of financial identifiers that runs before address decomposition begins. So the codes are preserved and routed to the correct fields. Hybrid loses data the bank didn't realize it had. Structured protects it.
Finally, the strategic layer. What do banks only see the value of 2 or 3 years in?
Well, so there's two dimensions, and this is where the conversation shifts from compliance ROI to competitive ROI. First, AI and automation readiness. 30 to 40% of AI model failures in financial services trace directly to data quality. The number one culprit? Unstructured, inconsistent address data that the model has to interpret probabilistically. Every institution I advise is building AI into their payment stack. The ones starting with structured data are 12 to 18 months ahead of the ones trying to retrofit it. By 2028, that's a chasm, not a lead. Second, correspondent banking quality. Correspondent relationships are consolidating. There are fewer correspondent banks, and the survivors are more selective. They penalize poorly structured data, surcharges, corridor restrictions, manual intervention fees. Sometimes just a quiet deprioritization of your traffic. Structured data delivers clean, deterministic, standards-compliant messages that process without exception at the receiving bank. In a consolidating correspondent market, that's not a nice to have. It's the difference between premium pricing and being deprioritized. Your data quality becomes a commercial negotiating position.
Pull it all together for me. How do these 10 dimensions actually interact? And what do you want a program director to walk into their steering committee with?
Okay, so here's how I'd frame it. The 10 dimensions don't operate in isolation. That's the part banks miss. Higher STP drives lower exception costs. Lower exception costs free budget that funds better screening tooling. Better screening produces cleaner case data. Cleaner case data raises audit grades. Higher audit grades improve correspondent relationships. Stronger correspondents route you more traffic. More traffic exposes more data. And if it's structured, it trains your AI. AI-ready banks pull 12 to 18 months ahead of peers. Every rung reinforces the next. That's where the 30 to 50 times ROI number comes from. It's a multiplier, not an addition. Hybrid captures rung 1. Structured runs the full cascade. Now, the decision frame. Walk in with 3 questions. 1. Does structured satisfy hybrid requirements? Yes, structured is the superset. 2. Is implementation effort materially different? No, same pipeline, same sidecar, same 10 to 16 weeks, same budget. 3. Does structured deliver measurably better outcomes? Yes, across all 10 dimensions. If every answer leads to structured and evidence says it is, the rational default is structured. The only legitimate exception is a specific corridor, where a correspondent bank cannot yet accept structured format. That's exactly automatic hybrid fallback is for. The question was never hybrid or structured. The question is, why would you accept the inferior outcome when the effort is the same?
Parth, close it for us.
Well, the question was never hybrid or structured. The question was always this: what return on your implementation budget do you want to claim? The same 10 to 16 week sidecar build can deliver one marginal STP bump and a compliance certificate, or it can deliver 10 measurable dimensions of compounding return and a 30 to 50 times ROI multiplier. Same pipeline, same budget, same deadline, structured by default, hybrid where operationally necessary. That's the frame. Every other framing is a story someone wanted to sell you.
That's Parth Desai, founder and chairman of ioNova AI. If you want to go deeper, the companion blog, Same Effort, Better Outcome, walks through all 10 dimensions with the data and the regulatory citations. Links below. Subscribe to Resolved. I'll see you in the next one.